Hello, this is David. I'm at the Ned Hotel. Luxurious, fantastic 5-star hotel owned by Soho House, I believe. It's a beautiful building, but it's got a secret in the basement. Again, apologies if I make you feel sick. Bands are out to play, look at the roof, look at the lovely sound. You can bar. But if we go downstairs, you see the secret of what this building used to be. Built in the 1920s by Edwin Lutyens, the same man who designed the cenotaph in Whitehall, dedicated to the memory of the war dead. This used to be the headquarters of the Midland Bank. And if you look here, you will see that they still have the amazing bank vault door built for the bank. And inside here, we have the guarding swan for all the safe deposit boxes in this wonderful bank. The Ned Hotel, formerly headquarters of the Midland Bank. These are all magicians, and I am in the headquarters of the Magic Circle. There are all sorts of fantastic things here, but the most interesting for me at the moment is this object here. These cups and balls are the very same ones that were used by His Royal Highness Prince of Wales, as he was, now King Charles, when he did his audition here in November 1975. And these are the very same cup and balls. It would involve hiding these little crochet balls underneath the cups and moving them around as they appear and reappear, disappear. And as ever, the final load is generally an orange. And this is a copy of the certificate that was given to King Charles when he joined the Magic Circle. It was in Bloomsbury rather than in Euston, where we are now. And it was actually through his uncle, Mountbatten, that he became really interested in magic. If you want to join the Magic Circle, and I encourage anyone with any interest in magic to do so, it's based on, first of all, an interview, and then you have an audition. And this is the room in which most of the auditions take place. It's in front of a group of magicians who make it very clear what the criteria are. And I was lucky enough to get in a couple of years ago. And I'm very proud to be a member of the Magic Circle. And like I said, this is where they've also got a lecture room upstairs here as well. They've got a bar downstairs, very central. And there's full of other amazing historical magical items here as well. Mr. Maskelyne, George Cook, the illusion they would use. What else have we got here? We've got some things from Robert Houdin. We've got Houdini's water torture here as well. Basically, it's a treasure trove of fascinating people and amazing things that I'm privileged and proud to be a member of. This is an amazing collection of masterpieces in miniature. It was commissioned by Pallant House in Chichester during lockdown, and the idea was that they commissioned over 30 of the greatest current British artists, most exciting contemporary British artists, to create a tiny miniature of their work. Then they commissioned a firm of architects called Wright and Wright to build a model house in which the gallery would be visited. And I think it's absolute triumph. I'll go through some of the artists included within here. But the idea really was that during lockdown, many artists just couldn't work at all. They couldn't even get to their studios. Every exhibition around the world was cancelled, and there was a whole feeling of being creatively blocked if you're a creative artist working with your teams or whatever. So they reached out to, as I said, over 30 artists, and it's a microcosm of contemporary visual arts. Some of them are mainly sculptures, oil paintings, ceramics, even photographs, and included the 2017 Turner Prize winner Lubina Himid, the first black woman to win the prize, including, so the smallest is about the size of a coin, sometimes up to 20 centimetres, but no bigger. And the model exists within its own scale and was designed specifically for the miniature artwork. Each artist was given dimensions of 100 by 150 millimetres just to work within, and it's just over 2 metres tall. It's absolutely wonderful. Let's list some of the artists whose work you can see inside here, in no particular order. So we have Kajija Say, Fiona Ray, Toby Ziegler, Sean Scully, a very well-established artist, George Shaw, Grayson Perry, who did this vase you see here as well, Julian Opie, he did the black deer and the green dog you see on the first side, Hugh Locke,
Let's see, Michael Landy, Maggie Hambling, who did the Oscar Wilde one in The Strand, Edmund de Waal, Tacita Dean, Kay Donachie. That's Rana Begum, by the way. Let's see, who else has pots by? That's by Magdalena Odundo. I can't recognise any of them. Anyway, but it's incredible. Okay, that's that lamb. Who made that lamb? That's by Michael Armitage. There we go, got that name right. But it's an absolutely wonderful collection. I urge you to go to Chichester Pallant House and see this amazing tribute to...
So you've all heard about the Great Fire of London, 1666. Destroyed 13,500 houses, 84 churches, etc. Well, there was a second one, less than 100 years later, 1748, in March the 2nd, called the Second Great Fire of London. It happened right where we are now. Much smaller, but equally devastating. And this is a map that was made at the time showing the area affected by the Second Great Fire. So we have Cornhill up here, which is the street at the top there. This street is called Birchin Lane. You can see Birchin Lane is here, and all the houses listed here are the same houses that got destroyed. Now this was designed about a week after the fire, and the interesting thing from a sociological point of view is that each of the buildings in here lists the type of business that it had as well. So you can see the distribution of trades and how the economics worked at the time. So you have, for example, a draper, a watchmaker, a hatter, what's that? Sword Blade Coffee House, a gunpowder office, no surprise, no surprise there's a fire here, insurance office, churchyard, the Swan Inn, that's Jonathan's Coffee House, a bookseller, stationer, bookseller, milliner, pewterer, etc., etc. Now, I marched around these streets with this map last year during lockdown, mapping the original trade back in 1748 onto what was being done here now, and I found in one place the same business, not the same company, but the same trade is happening, and that is here. Where it says it's a tailor here, if you look at the map here, so that we've just come through Castle Court. So, and we go, that's Castle Court here, there's an alleyway over there, and here it says Winstanley Tailor.
Yeah.
Yes. Just here.
Yeah.
So the same trade, 270 years later, it's still being carried out in this business here. And I've spoken to the shopkeeper there, and they want to have a copy of this map so they can put it on display here. So isn't that incredible?
Incredible.
That there's
It's
the same.
incredible.
So okay. Now I also said I do some magic for you as well, because as a magician, I like to entertain people. So I have here, not one, but not one, not two, but three pieces of rope.
Yes.
Now I normally try to link my magic to London history because it works better that way. I can't really think of much. Maybe an executioner, 3 executioners. Okay, come here, Sandra. Right, so I want you to take the large piece of rope. Okay, come over here as well. I want you to take the tiny piece. No disrespect, right? Okay, now come here. Okay, take the small piece. I want you to test the rope, tug it, pull it, try to break it, make sure you can find that.
Strong out.
Okay,
Strong.
excellent, very good. Okay, take that one. I'll take that one, take that. I can go back now. Okay, and watch carefully as I'm going to hypnotise you all. You're all under because these ropes are the same length here. But if I take this piece, and I take this piece, I take this piece, this, you're under. Because I've been putting weights in lockdown. Look, got one piece here. 2 pieces there.
That's
3
incredible.
pieces there. They're all the same length. Isn't that magic? And now, and my hypnotic powers do not last very long because I do this. And suddenly we now have 1 piece. 4 pieces. Excellent. And let's get you all in for...
So hard to get in here nowadays, so I'm giving you a guided tour. This is the Guildhall in the City of London, where any famous visiting dignitaries come and have dinner. This is where the Queen made her speech about the Annus Horribilis in 92. Okay, that's Beckford, we'll come back to him later, a massive slave owner. This is William Pitt the Younger, and he was 24 years old when he became Prime Minister. He was Prime Minister during the Battle of Trafalgar, and this is his father on the other side. This is William Pitt the Elder, who was responsible for the expansion of much of the British Empire, huge wealth coming into the city. His head was blown off in the Second World War and replaced, so it's not quite the same looking as the rest of his body. That's that one, Pitt the Elder, Pitt the Younger as well, full of the power of evidence. Okay, the next one is the Duke of Wellington, and he obviously beat Napoleon finally at the Battle of Waterloo in 1815, and we have at the base here a depiction of the battle itself, the British troops on Mrs. Wellington himself, the Iron Duke, and the French are wearing the original bearskins, and the British took the bearskins as a sign of victory over the French, and that's what the Guards wear nowadays. And right at the top right corner we have the real heroes of Waterloo, the Blucher and his Prussian troops coming to save the day. Wellington staved off the French long enough just to survive, and then they came and had the vital extra power that won the day in the end. Okay, by the way, this building was built in the 1420s, if you can believe it, by that famous man, Dick Whittington. He was a real man. Okay, this is dedicated to Nelson. Now, he actually isn't sculpted here at all directly. This is the Battle of Trafalgar in 1805. You can see here another defeat for the French. Nelson was fatally wounded in the battle, died on board his ship, and his head is shown in relief here as well, together with a very sad lion bemoaning what a disaster it was for the country for poor Nelson to die. Okay, this is obviously Winston Churchill. The sculptor did this is Niemon, a good friend of his, and you can see typically here Churchill's face has got that sort of half smile on one side, half frown on the other, like a bulldog expression. He quite liked this sculpture when it was put up, because it was much better than Graham Sutherland's sort of modernistic gift to him from Parliament that he despised and had burnt, if you've seen that episode of The Crown. These are Gog and Magog, the fabled giants who legendarily founded Londinium, as it were. Okay, cutting across now, we're seeing again the stonework, the states for John Croxton, his name was, 1420s, the gift of Dick Whittington. Okay, these are the armies that can march through the city of London, and this final window was put up to celebrate 800 years of there being a mayor of London. The first mayor was Henry Fitz-Alwyn in the year 1189, and 800 years later the mayor then, whose name I forget, had this erected. The window depicts famous scenes from the city, buildings going up, Great Fire of London, disaster, an earlier fire here as well. You've got the only picture of any king in the entire Guildhall crossing over here. And then we've got the mayor himself founding it. So once again, we're looking in the wondrously beautiful Guildhall. I was here for a reception for people who volunteer for the City of London, and it's such a shame that it's impossible to get in here now. Can you imagine 7,000 people here baying for blood? Well, that's what happened here 1,800 years ago, because where we are now in the middle of the City of London, right next to where the Guildhall is, was a Roman amphitheatre, and the boundary of the amphitheatre, which was only discovered in 1989 when they were digging the foundations for what became the Guildhall Art Gallery here, has been marked by this thin black boundary line along the courtyard here, which stretches all the way past this Christopher Wren brilliant church, up past the Pepper Pot, which is the Court of Aldermen for the City of London, and around in front of the Guildhall itself. It was only discovered by accident. They had no idea it was here. And somewhere in London, we believe there was also a sort of hairpin-shaped hippodrome or horse race track as well. I just hope I live long enough for it to be discovered. The gallery had to be delayed for 10 years while they dug away and redid the architectural plans for it, as they have actually incorporated part of the amphitheatre into the underground of the art gallery, and it's free to visit. You can go anytime you want to, when it's open, that is, and look around it. The walls of this Guildhall itself, the medieval walls, they themselves date from the 1420s, but of course that age is dwarfed by the age of the amphitheatre. It was a huge space, as I said, 7,000 people could sit here. First built in about 70, then in wood, then rebuilt in stone later. And the gladiator versus gladiator fights were extremely rare. It tended to be, first course would be animals against prisoners, I think, one way of keeping prison population down. Then it would be gladiators against prisoners, but because gladiators was such an expensive commodity, it was relatively infrequently that you would actually have gladiators fighting gladiators. And this place is so full of history, I could give it a single tour just standing in the middle of it talking about it. But anyway, come to the Guildhall in the City of London and have a miraculously interesting historical time.
what they do. Hello, Hamish.
Hi, great to see you.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Okay, so
stopping
tell us
by.
all about what the Scrubbar Farms do.
Well, so what we're doing here is we're building a farm in the middle of Fleet Street, in the middle of the city, and bringing food back to basically people's front doors. So you used to be able to look out the window and see where your food came from. Now you can actually do it right in the heart of the city. And basically, it's like, as a London-based company, we're born and bred here in London, we're based in Paddington. We're building farms all over the city. We've got 50 buildings in London who have got farms in them, and we're using that as a way of getting people reconnected with food and having conversations about sustainability and about well-being and nutrition, and collaborating together to harvest the produce and then use it in our own dishes.
Excellent. And what have we got here today?
So we've got a lovely mix. We've got some beautiful kale here.
I don't like kale, I have to say, but never mind.
There we go. So we've got some sweet Genovese basil. We've got a little bit of sage. We've got a lot of parsley. And we've got a little bit of sorrel over there.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to, with your permission, can I take a little leaf of sorrel to nibble on, or is it
Yes,
protected?
go-
Okay,
yeah,
I'll take
go
a
for
tiny piece,
Yep.
and I'm going to eat it. And we've got a delightful lemony, not too bitter, quite pleasant. I can sure it'd be really good in flavouring salads and
Salads
quite
and
strong though.
soups and things like that make really lovely sauces to go with fish. So there's lots you can do with it. But the thing that's great about all of this is it all started its life here in London, weirdly, on the top floor of a building in Paddington, which is where our nursery is. And so we grow all of our plants literally from seed in the middle of London.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
No, real pleasure.
This building, with its distinctive line edge to it, is called the Cheese Grater. And there's a very special reason why it's that, because unlike, say, the walkie-talkie, which has a curved out space at the top to maximise the revenue from the higher level floors, it had to legislate to do this. All because of a famous man called Christopher Wren. Christopher Wren was the architect who built St Paul's Cathedral, but he also built 53 of the churches in the City of London after the Great Fire of 1666. Now, he originally wanted to build London on a rational geometric lines with boulevards and angles and corners in it that would allow it to be a bit like Paris. So this was his plan, rational, logical, radiating centres. It wasn't allowed because so many people were insisting that their houses be rebuilt. They didn't have evidence as to where their houses were. So he just gave the commission to build the churches. Now, that did mean that he dictated the London skyline for centuries. So this is an original magazine, 1657. Look at the London skyline here. All of these towers are churches that were built by Christopher Wren in the late 17th century. And until the early 20th century, this was what you saw when you came across London Bridge, when you from Southwark, when you saw London itself. St Paul's Cathedral, St Mary the Bow. Each of these different spires was a different named church. That meant he didn't get his full idea of rebuilding London geometrically, but at least he dictated the skyline. But then what happened in the early 20th century, all the buildings started to go up, and finally they agreed this plan. So if you look at this, it shows you these blue lines show areas in which people cannot build high tower buildings, as far as Kenwood House, Ali Pali, Greenwich, Peckham, etc., etc. And that's why this here is the Cheese Grater. And the reason why it's got the bent angle on it is to allow people to see past it all the way to St Paul's Cathedral. That's the reason why the Cheese Grater is called the Cheese Grater. End of video. Death and Taxes, an incredible new art exhibition criticising the excesses and money-grabbing tendencies of the City of London, in the middle of which we are now. So this is the artist, Mr. Imperial, and this is one of the exhibits he's created. It's a banker who gives you advice. Let's put some money in the slot and see what he says. He's wearing...
Investments like the stars in the sky come in many different shapes and sizes. Some shine brightly, while others make dim and harder to see. Research clarity and seek out trusted advisors who can guide you on your investment journey. By following the universal guidance, you will manifest financial abundance and create a legacy that will benefit future generations.
Thank you, Mr. Banker. Right, what else have we got here? We've got these skulls, not the crystal skulls from Indiana Jones. These are skulls filled with shredded, £1 million worth of shredded notes. They sold out, sadly, so I can't buy one. But it does remind me a bit of Damien Hirst's Platinum Skull as well. Okay, what else is there? This is the artist, Mr. Imbu himself. Tell us about this.
Another installation piece called Bleeding Me Dry. It's kind of a symbol of how everyone seems to be feeling at the moment.
Excellent, splattering blood, our money all over the floor. Okay, this is a free newspaper you can get from the installation. The exhibit continues downstairs. Okay. So tell us about the Freddos, the golden Freddos.
Yeah, so this is another edition. There was an edition of 100 of these. They're solid bronze and 24 karat gold plated. And for me, they're kind of the ultimate symbol of inflation. Everyone remembers when the Freddo was 10p, and it now might set you back around 50p.
Excellent. Okay. And we also have here another installation, barrel to cup crude oil slush. So it's meant to be like a coffee versus money, sort of, or oil and coffee.
Yeah, and kind of like corporate influence. On here as well, you've got the price per barrel of oil at the moment. And it is just a cola slush, so you can drink it.
Yeah, I think I'll leave that one for now. And what about these cereals?
Yeah, so we've got a set of 4 cereal boxes, all based on familiar things. It's kind of the idea behind these is how the everyday person now needs to be thinking about kind of stocks and investments, sort of just to get by.
I have to say, I love. I'm not being paid to do this, by the way. I love your production values. I think the quality of research that's gone into everything you put here is absolutely amazing. So you've got some lottery tickets here as well.
Yeah, this is the stock lotto. Again, like I'm saying, the idea of the average person now trying to sort of invest in the stock market as a way to get rich.
Excellent. And we also have here some tasty crayons showing the benefits of the artistic life, I assume, as opposed to the financial one, although it is highly addictive. Excellent. Okay, well, on that bombshell, it's only open to the 11th. Can you see it says here, printed in the year 1667, which is the year after the fire. And it is a true and faithful account. This is a parliamentary inquiry into the late dreadful burning of the City of London. So this was the Parliament that commissioned this report. And it has, at the beginning here, a description of the fire by the surveyors, explaining exactly how far it travelled. It has the membership of the committee listed on the next page, which includes Mr. Pepys, that's the name of Samuel Pepys, the famous diarist, who wrote for 9 years his private diary about London. And it's full of evidence that was submitted to them, most of which seems to resolve around people ratting out their neighbours, claiming that they'd heard them plotting, or people were discussing it in pubs, or letters were left in church pews saying that I was the one who set the fire, or my neighbour, the foreigner, the Catholic, was doing it, or that their letter said that I have been a Catholic, but now I converted back to Protestantism, but I have to admit I was responsible. So the last page, for example, here has a letter. It says, a warning to Protestants, I, who have been a papist, a Catholic, since my infancy till of late, and in zeal for their horrid principles, had too great a share in the firing of the city, etc. Confession. Now, one man did actually confess, a man called Hubert, a foreigner. He was then executed within a couple of weeks, and he was then found, it is said, to have not been in the country at the time of the fire anyway. The real agenda that Parliament had was listed here. They made it very clear what they were actually trying to do, because they say other information touching upon the incidency of popish priests and Jesuits and the increase of popery as of Catholics. Catholics were the usual suspects at the time. You know, in 1605, a bunch of Catholic terrorists had tried to blow up Parliament, this is Guy Fawkes, etc. But the vast majority of Catholics just wanted a peaceful private life, to be able to worship in their own homes, etc. Tiny minority. But the real issue here was that it was to do with the monarchy. So King Charles II was a Protestant, but he converted to Catholicism on his deathbed in 1685. But his younger brother, the next in line to the throne, James II, had secretly converted to Catholicism abroad in France during the exile. And it wasn't properly acknowledged he was a Catholic until 1673. But even in 1667, there were suspicions. And so lots of the innuendo contained in this document is about
James, his brother's troops being handed over, evidence, or soldiers found people plotting and gave them to them, and they disappeared. Nothing was. It was all trying to chip away at the reputation of King James II, and eventually Charles II actually suppressed this document. It wasn't allowed to be presented to Parliament, which is why the members of the committee had this privately printed off to be circulated to allow their evidence to be suspected. And eventually, James did become king, but only for 3 years. In 1688, he was deposed, and his Catholic daughter and her Catholic husband, William and Mary, were put in his place.
Ring that bell.
Is it ringing?
It is.
Oh, I can't hear it.
I can.
Let me get
So we are in Bell House, built in 1769 in leafy Dulwich. It's an open day today, and we've been given special permission to ring the bell that was first cast in 1770, the year after the house was made. The bell was designed to alert people living around here if there was a fire, to come and put it out with buckets and whatever they had as well. And it's now been recast by the foundry sometime in...
Not recast, restored.
Restored, but so it's still the original bell. Amazing. And let's look out the window and see what goes. So we've now called the local villagers in Dulwich to come and put out a fire. They seem to be responding to the call to alerts by coming in their bicycles. There's a bit more about the history of the house as well to learn a bit later on. But anyway, it's an amazing house, and it's a charity now. So what do you get if you come on one of my tours? Well, I could go on for hours about myself, as I do, but let's listen to my clients. I think they're much better at it than I am. So this is me. Look at it. I'm number 19 in the London TripAdvisor rankings, 492 reviews. And what do people say about me? Okay, first of all, the most recent one, Sandra, 5 stars, brilliant insight. Thank you, David. Last a long time, memories, etc. Radhika, thank you very much. Very informative. So informative, lots of interesting facts we'll definitely use again. Packs in so much interesting detail. Magic tricks training. Yes, I am a magician as well, member of the Magic Circle, as is King Charles. What's this one? Oh, best tour guide in London. And I didn't pay Lothsa to say that, by the way. Just, yeah, thank you, David. You are too kind. Of course, I have to reply to those sort of things. Informative, insanely fun, little secrets. Yeah, great insight, thoroughly recommended. You won't be disappointed. Super fun and fascinating, super fun evening tour, engaging. Most wonderful introduction to the city. We gave our highest recommendation. What's this person say? Outstanding tour guide, etc., etc. And I could go on. There are 492 of them here. Anyway, just to say that, don't believe me, believe what other people say about me. If you want to book me, you can email me on david@thelondonspy.com. I made some notes about what he has to say about myself here. But as I say, yeah, award-winning TikTok influencer, range of tours. You can see my tours on my website. A degree in classics, Latin, ancient Greek. Used to be a vice president at Deutsche Bank, magician. And I'm a member of the livery company, the Stationers, very ancient, dating back to 1403, City of London Livery Guild. Find out more about them by coming on my tours. So essentially, I'd come on my own tours. What greater recommendation could that be? The London Spy, David Harry. So, Prince Charles once came to this club and complained to the owner afterwards, saying, I don't think you're paying the magicians here, the jazz musicians here, as much money because they're sharing their cigarettes. Ha! Of course, you know what that means, don't you? So this is Ronnie Scott's, the most famous jazz club in the world, in the centre of seedy Soho, as it once was. There's a magnum of champagne behind the bar here, given to the owner because he kept quiet when he saw a murder take place in a street nearby, allegedly, and he never had to pay protection money to the mob gangs around here after that time. Famous people who played here. Well, Prince organised a famous concert here. He insisted on no set list, so they had to smuggle the 73 celebrities in one by one from the upstairs bar where they've been kept to avoid annoying Prince's management. Lady Gaga played an impromptu gig here. Jimi Hendrix, etc. Everyone that you can think of, famous musicians played here. It's a wonderful place. And I've had many fantastic times here myself. So I said, Prince Charles didn't recognise when the musicians were smoking the wacky backy. This is a genuine World War II SOE, Special Operations Executive map that will be given to operatives who have been parachuted into enemy occupied territory as volunteers working for the British forces. And it belongs to my brother-in-law. It was owned by his father, John Hay Kirkpatrick Shaw. And he gave it to him after the war, apparently. He's just lent it to me to show, and I'm absolutely astonished. It's genuine silk, printed, and it could often be so thin that it would be put inside the linings of clothing of people who were sent, so it could be hidden if they were arrested. But it shows major journey routes and railway, I suppose, and main boating links. This is Greece, Turkey, Bulgaria. So this is a genuine World War II SOE map. This is in a Premier Inn, one of those medium-range hotels. It's in the City of London from 1988, and it inspired an artwork outside the building, designed by a radical artist called Michael Sandel. The staircase is actually the plinth for the sculpture outside it from the same year, commissioned for an office building before it was turned into the Premier Inn. And you can see in the distance, looming ahead of you, it's called St. George and the Dragon. Here we are, Premier Inn. So it was designed to represent the dragon actually beating St. George in some ways, although that was sort of kiboshed by the sculptors in the end. He wanted it to represent a working class St. George. And the dragon, problematically, was described as like a stuffed goose at one point, or like an oil pipeline at another point. It wouldn't really fit in. So, as I said, St. George was meant to be ironical, with the dragon getting the better of George. And he said George was not your usual officer type. He doesn't carry his spear under his arm like he's pig sticking. He's actually working very hard, and it's a nasty piece of work, a man who could kill a dragon. And you can see here how the plinth on which it stands is very similar to the staircase in the Premier Inn behind it. There's the staircase. This isn't warning children to look out for road traffic. This is from Northern Ireland. It's about warning children not to pick up potential dangerous bombs in the street. This is the Imperial War Museum Living with the Troubles exhibition. It's just opened, and I saw it a couple of days ago. Okay, so the next item we see here is a poster advertising the Provisional IRA H-Block hunger strikers, 10 of whom, I believe, starved themselves to death in political protest. Around the corner, we've got a handkerchief from the Youth Ulster Volunteer Force, screen printed in the Longkesh internment camp. Gusty Spence is one of their leaders here, the commanding officer on the left, and this would raise money. They were stopped giving their special status of prisoners of war in 1976. Okay, this is a letter given to a loyalist murderer who was set free. Right, this shows the number of deaths between the different elements: civilians, security, Republican and loyalist paramilitaries. You can see that it started at a low figure in 1969-70, mushroomed up to almost over 400 in 1972. 74 increased up to about 150, and it dropped to just down about 100 or so. But the vast majority of the deaths in the communities within these posters shows that they are civilians, and more members of the security forces died compared to members of paramilitary groups within either of the communities. This is the type of mortar bomb that would be used. It's actually similar to the one that was used against 10 Downing Street in Whitehall when John Major, and it landed in the garden, just avoided narrowly killing somebody. This is an example of the rubber bullets that were used by the police. 17 people died, including 16 of them were Catholics. This is the Provisional IRA badge showing support to raise funds. Okay, this is a car bomb that was diffused in 1972, and it was an effective weapon. They could be used to deliver bombs, to be driven to the site, caused massive damage, and didn't need many volunteers to place the device. And here's an image. This is the most attacked statue in London. Let me tell you why. So who is it, first of all? Well, it is that famous writer, wit, playwright, aesthete, Oscar Wilde. And the sculpture was made by a woman called Maggie Hambling in 1988. And the inscription here says, "We are all in the gutter, but some of us are looking at the stars." If you look really closely at his head here, can you see that inside his skull, she's made like a moon here, lots of different, like starfish, like a crescent moon in the background as well, sort of commenting on that.
she famously is always depicted smoking. She's an addicted smoker, although in fact in the last few weeks she's actually given up, famously. And what happens is that people keep sawing off Oscar Wilde's cigarette. She complained about this to Westminster Council so much that she asked them to put up a hidden security camera around here somewhere. Maybe that's it, I'm not entirely sure. But anyway, as I said, it's the most attacked sculpture in London. He did smoke. In fact, he called smoking was exquisite, according to Oscar Wilde. So I suppose it's appropriate anyway. And what else is about her? She also did the sculpture to Mary Wollstonecraft in Islington about 2 years ago that was so criticised because it wasn't really about her, it was a naked woman, which isn't really what Mary Wollstonecraft is meant to be about, in my opinion, but there we go. Anyway, and also Oscar Wilde used to spend much time in the Savoy Hotel, just up the road from here, where he was having his liaisons with his lover, Bosie, and here we are. This is my invitation in about an hour's time for a lunch in Stationers' Hall. Now, I'm not properly dressed for it yet, as you might guess, although I only have matching socks and jacket, t-shirt. I will be dressing up, my clothes are in here. So this is Stationers' Hall. It is the ancient guild dating back to the year at least 1403 that I'm a member of. And the reason I'm a member is that I used to be a printer, my family were printers, and this company represents printing. Also newspapers, journalists, paper makers, packaging, etc., etc. The hall itself was burnt down in the Great Fire of London and rebuilt. It dates to about 1673, and it's celebrating its 350th anniversary this year as well. And this is where all the guests of the master, Moira Slight, will be coming. You can see how it's all decked out with images relating to the history of print. This is William Caxton, showing, I believe, Edward IV, his printing press. I have been told, by the way, that the printing press is not correct. The arm that sticks out would be stuck against the wooden ledge and wouldn't work properly. Never mind. We've got a pennant here from the stationer's barge that will go up and down the River Thames. And as I said, in an hour's time, there's going to be a wonderful dinner here. Let's see what we're going to be eating as well. And there is the menu. So anyway, I'm incredibly proud to be a member of the Stationers' Company, and it's a wonderful institution. Thank you. So there's a fine tradition of protest on display in Parliament Square today. Outside the House of Parliament, there is a group singing that Bay City Rollers song, Bye Bye Baby, except the lyrics are slightly different. I don't know if they're playing royalties to the Bay City Rollers.
My Boris, Boris, bye-bye. My Boris, Boris, bye-bye. Boris, Boris,
Just a few minutes from Fenchurch Street Station in the middle of the City of London is this peaceful oasis of the church called St Olave's. It is one of the very few medieval churches to have escaped the Great Fire of London in 1666, and it dates back to the foundation, the 11th century. Now, just opposite here is a place called Walsingham House, and it's where the spymaster of Queen Elizabeth I, a man called Francis Walsingham, who amongst other things led to the execution of Mary Queen of Scots by deciphering her alleged letters. This also was the home church of a very famous Londoner, a man called Samuel Pepys. He lived just opposite here in a place called Seething Lane Gardens, in fact just over here where his house was when he was controlling the Navy. And he came to worship here, and he's actually buried here along with his wife. Furthermore, this was the home of hundreds and hundreds of people who died in the Great Plague of 1665, the year before the Great Fire of London. Charles Dickens knew this church well, calling it one of my best beloved churchyards, and in fact in one of his books, The Uncommercial Traveller, he talks about coming here in a cab, horse-drawn obviously, and it being so late and dark that the driver of the horse gets really upset by the three skulls above here, which he nicknamed the churchyard of St Ghastly Grim. One of the people listed in the register of this church is a woman called Mother Goose, and let's see what else. And finally, do you know the difference between a maze and a labyrinth? Well, I'll show you, just to confirm what they are. In this corner of the churchyard is indeed a labyrinth, and the difference between them is that a maze is confusing and you get stuck down one-way streets that don't go anywhere, whereas a labyrinth, as you see here, is just one route. Takes you straight in and straight out, and obviously you've got images of the crucifix in here. This is meant to be a piece of contemplation, and they've even provided you with a useful way of meditating here and a prayer to think of when you're actually navigating the labyrinth. So all in all, a quiet little churchyard, almost nearly empty, and inside it is buried one of London's most famous people who kept a secret diary for 9 years in shorthand, a man called Sir Samuel Pepys. So another beautiful house, this one. We're in Doughty Street, just feet away from Charles Dickens' house. But this building here, number 56 Doughty Street, until a few years ago, it was owned by a very famous magazine called The Spectator, which is sort of a right-of-centre magazine, which traces its roots back to Addison in the 1710s or thereabouts. But what I love about this particular house is the mosaic in its doorway. Have a look at this. It's got a palette on it with paint, and I love the way that the leaves here sort of complement the colour scheme for this. So I can't quite make out. So there's a palette, there's a few three brushes, one of which looks like an arrow, but these bizarre things in the corner look like they're made of, I don't know, they're chocolates, ties. But the whole thing is an incredibly beautiful accompaniment to the scene of the street, and obviously it's somewhere that I would love to live if only my TikTok reviews would lead to a lot of money coming in. Anyway, hope you enjoy this. Former home of The Spectator in Doughty Street next to Charles Dickens' house. The Corporation of London voted to remove this statue in 2021, but then changed their mind. Let's talk about why. So his name is William Beckford. His statue here is in the Guildhall, the ancient heart of the City of London, and he owned 3,000 slaves in 13 plantations in Jamaica. He put down a revolt of 400 slaves were then killed as a result, including the leader of them being burnt alive. And he even had the temerity to name one of his slaves Liberty after his friend John Wilkes. John Wilkes was the reason why his statue was put here. His hand is up. He is standing in opposition to King George III. In a famous speech he made just before he died in 1770, the speech is at the bottom of the thing here. And in the speech, he was reminding King George III that no man is above the law, and that we have a constitutional democracy in this country following the Glorious Revolution, and therefore monarchs really should remember that they are only there at the toleration of their peoples. And he had denied his great friend John Wilkes his seat in Parliament, who had been elected and re-elected several times. He was a radical politician, John Wilkes, one of the first to publish, for example, parliamentary proceedings, and stood up for ordinary people against the aristocracy, and a bit of a rabble-rouser, to be honest. Anyway, normally when you speak to the king, you just listen and retrieve yourself. This time he put his hand up to the king, and as a result he stood up for the city, and the city gave him this statue as a present result. But the city had voted to remove it because of his links to slavery. They went back on it, and now there's a sign there. Imagine being dumped here and being given an hour to pass your spy test to get into MI6. Well, that's what really happens. Just about a mile around that beach, there's a place called Upton, and it's alleged to be the training and advanced training site for SIS, MI6. And one of the training sessions you're given is you're dumped with nothing, just your clothes up when you're in, somewhere in the Portsmouth area, and you're given an hour to get one person's passport number. And you have to use your powers of persuasion and inspiration to do it. So what would you do if you had to forget someone's passport number? Well, one person went into a pub just like this, and a bit like me, he was an amateur magician. He got a pack of cards, so he did tricks, and he managed to persuade someone like a bet. So I can't bet, I can guess your whatever. Anyway, he did that. Other people that pretended to be recruiting for an all-expenses cruise. They just need people to come with them to act as cruise hands on it, and they've got people to give them their passport numbers. This is one of the things. If anyone, you're in Portsmouth around here, anyone comes up to you with a tall story about why they need your passport number, it's probably because they're trying to get fitted and successfully pass that first test to get into MI6. This man was due to face death at dawn. He was an anarchist. He was charged in Madrid under the Spanish dictator General Franco with carrying plastic explosives. He was eventually excused slow strangulation by an iron collar, but instead he was sentenced to serve 20 years in prison. Who is he? His name's Stuart Christie. He's an incredibly famous Scottish anarchist. Now, as an anarchist, you would have thought he would have not wanted to be immortalised, almost sanctified in this stained glass, but that's one of the ironies of his life. So, as I said, he was then brought back to England, where he became very heavily involved in anarchist politics, grew up in Partick in Scotland, and then he was accused of being a member of the Angry Brigade, a bunch of anarchist freedom fighters or terrorists, depending on what you think them, in the 1970s. He was held in Brixton for 18 months and then acquitted, although he was framed by having 2 detonators in his car, which the police planted, he alleged. This is in a left-wing library in the middle of Fleet Street, facing the Daily Express former headquarters, ironically, since he actually was sued by them, or one court case against them. Anyway, this is an anti-capitalist anarchist leader who has been immortalised in the City of London, the headquarters of capitalism. Oh my God, I've just found one of the ancient rivers of London. It's fully subterranean now, but it was here when the Romans came. It was open, sewer, etc. It's called the River Fleet. We're at the junction of Saffron Hill and Greville Street. Fine Victorian building here, by the way. And the river itself is just down inside this grate. Hopefully I can hear the noise. So I'd better make it louder. Put it right on there. Lucky I didn't drop my phone down there. It's the original River Fleet. As I said, there were 2 rivers in London. The first was the River Walbrook, where the Romans originally settled. And this sort of Fleet River marked the original boundary of the City of London, normally from Ludgate Hill, leading up to Fleet Street itself. And I'm just so pleased that I finally tracked down. It's a bit like finding the source of the Nile. This is where the original River Fleet still runs. Sweet river, run softly till I end my song. Anyway, there we go, the River Fleet.
I'm David Herrick. I am the London Spy. This is London. And please follow me if you like the videos. Click on the links to follow my TikTok and come and see me at one of my tours.